What's up, guys? I'm personally becoming a very big fan of lever-based gyms or systems such as the Powertec Quantum Trainer or just some other off-brand machine. But then picking up and messing around with some simple lever arms on my squat rack, also falling in love with these. I understand that for most people, both these things do not make a whole lot of sense, although there might be a case for maybe possibly having both of these. So in this video, I'm gonna outline some of the pros and cons or considerations of having, say, a dedicated set of lever arms to add to your squat rack, or just purchasing, as I said in a recent video, a dedicated lever gym system, such as a Powertec, as more of a station-based approach where everything's kind of set up and you can do not only lever arm exercises, but other cable-based exercises as well. And of course, if you want to spend a little bit more money on more commercial grade stuff, there are things such as the Quantum Trainer, which more stuff's coming soon, so stay tuned for that. But I'm gonna jump right into it, guys. I made a bunch of other relevant videos if you guys want to catch up, say on the Powertec review, Quantum Trainer, even these really cheap, but also still pretty versatile lever arms. I'll put all that stuff down below in the description box. Everything seen featured in this video will also be linked down below. Greatly help support me and the channel to keep giving you guys honest, unsponsored reviews and also content in the future. Okay, so we're gonna cover a lot of ground here somewhat briefly, and so I thought the best way of doing that is breaking it down into certain categories. Starting off first with basic function, it should go without saying, if we're talking about, say, a lever gym system versus just lever arms, the lever gym, like a Powertec, does a lot of other functions, so it is like basically a cable machine. If you guys don't have that, it has a top cable, bottom cable. Of course, it is still operating through a lever, and there are other things that attach to this versus the functionality of the lever gym is purely just the lever. I will say, and I said this in the first video for this simplistic review, there's a bunch of different lever arms that are out there, some much more expensive, and you'll see those probably coming up, but I do like this simple model where at least you got some sort of stopping point on the arms. And for the most part, this thing was like $200-ish. This does the job really well. I actually said in that video that if you really had this, the basic up and down movement, while there are some really expensive swivel stuff that is very cool, I think you get a lot of the, most of the benefits out of the basic up and down motion, extremely comparable to the Powertec. So I'm doing presses, whether it's chest presses, shoulder presses, rows, squats I'll kind of get to later. But the point is, this pretty much feels exactly the same as this. So when it comes to functionalities standpoint, just focusing on this video, just the lever arm mechanism, I'm not talking about the cable system. I would say functionality kind of wins out on the basic squat rack attachment lever arms because of the fact you can attach all different points of, say, where you want to set this up, which can kind of drive you nuts. I'll get to that later. You can overthink things. The beauty of the Powertec or something like this, that the arms are fixed. Obviously, there's a pros and cons here, but as this thing arcs, you can really fine tune where you want that tension. So I get comments, just got one actually this morning when I saw it. People asked about certain positions or where it feels on certain lever arms. The point I'd say is you can adjust this to different points. So wherever this thing, if I want to say, I could easily just go down here and kneel if I wanted to, but the lower this thing is, the more tension you're going to get. As I start pressing, there's less and less tension because of the mechanism of the arm. All that to say, you can fine tune it with the squat rack. You're pretty much stuck with what you got here on the Powertec. Things like body weight stuff, you'll see probably some clips in this video. This is stuff that you can do with the Powertec. It's just not ideal. Even things like pull-ups, you'll see me set up for pull-ups. I can do that really well here. So I'd say functionality, versatility, basic attachable lever arms probably win out. Again, excluding all the stuff you can do with the cables on the Powertec, but that might be something of value to you that we will get to. Next thing I think is a very big category and something to consider with really anything, but definitely something big, somewhat bulky, and kind of awkward with lever arms. I'm talking about just the ease of use. So I would say if you have a certain setup, depending on the space you're working with, if you can leave it set up, that would be probably the most ideal thing in the world. I actually did work out a certain situation with this yoke where I actually can leave it on both sides. That actually worked out pretty well. But even with that being said, something like the Powertec is much easier as a fixed station. So if I'm doing, say, a bunch of supersets, I'm not having a set plan for the day, because if you're planning something, I say you could plan around your Powertec, and that's what makes, your lever arms, and that's what kind of makes it interesting. You can have a day where you just set this up, and that's what you're kind of focusing on. But there's a lot of use and versatility and functionality out of just having a fixed station. So if I want to jump in here doing some chest presses or overhead presses, those are two key things I use a lot with the Powertec. So ease of use is concerned. If you have a set station like a lever gym system, that's pretty huge. Otherwise, with this thing, yeah, not gonna lie, it can be a little annoying to kind of set up a little bit, especially this isn't on a trolley system, but it does take, I would say, maybe a minute or two to just adjust the weights, but you gotta not mind having some girth to them to kind of move them up and down. Now, in no particular order, you got to talk about price. And a lever gym system, actually, I didn't share this at the start of the video. Whenever I show people various home gym equipment, I actually gave away my GMWD, and when I talk about stuff and share stuff with people, a lot of people don't know what this thing really is, never really heard of a lever gym. But once they do, this is one piece that most people really jump on right away because they see the practical use of it, because it is so small, it's compact, and most importantly, these are pretty affordable, whether you get a knockoff version like the GMWD like I covered, which is like $700-ish. Again, I'll link it down below. Powertec with the full set with a bench included is also pretty good. On sale right now also, shameless plug, affiliate code down below, but that's like $1,400 for this whole setup right here, you know, weights excluded, versus if some of these lever gyms, and I'll cover some more expensive ones in the future, these things are looking at like $700, $800, $1,400. So literally for the price of some really expensive lever arms, you could have bought a whole system such as this. These ones though, however, I still think these are really good basic functions of what you would essentially need as far as what I would consider for a good lever gym, or sorry, lever arms. These things are only like around roughly $200. So to me, that's a pretty good deal, but you gotta kind of weigh those pros and cons with prices there. This one really hits home to me because I'm really trying to justify, you know, going all in with just lever arms, or more so sticking with a set system or setup with a Powertec lever gym, something like that. And that is the whole idea of space confined. So the argument of having, you know, you have big, say a full power rack that extends out, the lever arms do stretch out, but you can collapse them like this. This is a yoke, but you consider maybe it's like a half rack type setup. Still very, you know, I can collapse this pretty easily, but still takes up some space if these things are kind of sitting out there. Powertec, you could argue, is a very small footprint, but you know, with the bench included or anything else, it's still, you know, not small. This is still a nice piece of real estate that I could use that otherwise for the primary exercises, again, just talking about just the lever arm mechanisms, not the cable, pretty much I can get these out of the way or move them, take them in and out when I want to use them. So space, I would say lever arms, I think, went out at the end. Now, a big key area where I think it counts are going to be the exercises. I already said versatility, functionality. The lever arms are probably the most flexible bet. You can get really creative in how you want to set these up, and that's going with a more or less cumbersome setup. I think if you got the stopper pins and something basic up and down, you can still do a lot of damage with this. Powertec, I pretty much only stick to a few exercises, but they're all really good. So chest presses, seated shoulder press or standing Viking press. I don't really do the bent over rows. I feel like they just kind of feel a little weird. On this one, that's my personal opinion. Squats feel excellent. You guys are seeing me do some calf raises, seated and also standing. Those feel excellent on here. I really do love the squatting on a Powertec, especially with the Powertec specifically, because I compare it with the old lever gym I had. You basically can, you know, set and start the pin whenever you guys want. You're so close to the Powertec, which is nice. Here, there are ways of doing it. Say setting up a bar. I actually had an old Weider, you know, 1-inch bar that's been at my house probably for like 30 plus years. Does slip into these 1-inch holes, fine. I didn't mess with it too much because the angle just wasn't right, but the point is that's a little more cumbersome. I'm probably not gonna do that. That's an example of Powertec's already set up. I can put the attachment in and I'm ready to go for that. So key exercises are concerned, I think for all the basic foundational ones, that does the job, but again, you're limited on the height and what you can do. Things like even bicep curls I've done on here before, where once you drop this down, I can get a good range of motion doing things like bicep curls. Surprisingly, I think do feel really good. You put a chain or an anchor point in here. Probably won't see it in this video, but bicep curls feel good. Body weight stuff, like I already said, is better on these. So I'd say again, at the end of the day, what gives you more exercises and also more kind of different setup points? Again, lever arms, basic lever arms probably went out over the Powertec, but the Powertec does its job on the core functions. I would consider picking up a Powertec, or I should say a lever gym, anything like this, wins out over some dedicated lever arms in these areas. First and foremost, like many people I'm talking to, if you do not even have a garage gym or a big basement space, or you have zero interest in using a squat rack for a number of reasons, and you're already attracted to the idea of something where I have the two main attachment points, in my opinion, the low cable point and the high cable point, this is going to be kind of a no-brainer. You get pretty much everything you need, you know, right here. Also considering the price point is much lower, so those will all be reasons I'd say go with a lever gym based system. The other big things are just the exercises. Be realistic on the things that you think you're going to use. If you're just going to be hitting those main things I talked about and you don't feel like trying anything crazy, you're not going to veer off the beaten path and try some novel positions or angles and stuff like that. Powertec is also probably the best option there. But then finally, if you are in that camp, or maybe you already got a dedicated garage room space like this, which is why I'm still, still considering and have either this or my quantum trainer set up in this little nook here. If you value having things like some sort of set station, not to mention this could be the station where I do a lot of leg curls, leg extensions from here, then honestly, even if you had the space for lever arms, you might warrant picking up one of these lever-based machines. And then moving on to your lever arms, I would say you already have a squat rack and you have limited space. This makes the case of trying out some lever arms. This is gonna be kind of canceling out this altogether. Also, if you're on the fence with lever arms, I think some people say they like them, some people say they hate them. I personally really love them. I'm surprised most people do not like them or have an issue with them. Of all the continuing array of attachments that are coming out here, this one especially, like I keep alluding to, this simplistic design right here, I just have a good time using this. So even though I have this Powertec, you guys are seeing clips of me using this thing, not because I was forcing into this video or setting up for this video, it's just that I still like setting these up and just trying things with lever arms. So that to me keeps telling me that as far as an attachment piece that's worth picking up or trying, something like this wouldn't be a bad idea. Not to mention it's also pretty low in a price point. If you get something like this, you're not gonna break the bank. You don't like it, worst case, offload it. You could even throw it away, but just store it away for another rainy day. That's what I also like about this is I'm personally using this. If I didn't have the Powertec, how I would use these, let's say I didn't have room where this gets kind of awkward to set up and find the right, setting. How I like to use these things is maybe there's certain workouts where you just, like I said, have a dedicated lever gym based workout session, or you're gonna integrate them. And that's, to me, these add a lot of value, just kind of mixing up your typical workout sessions. But finally, I would say your basic lever or jammer arms are gonna win out in overall versatility. If you really wanna fine tune things to fit your liking, or even like your weight bench, try to get into that, because depending on the height of your bench or the angle you're at, sometimes this is either too low or too high. There's always a way to manipulate the given resistance. So that would be probably the other huge area where these will win out over one of those other types of gyms and systems. But that's it, guys. Those are my overall general thoughts about these. I think these will always be a part of my home gym. These are things I recommend, even something like this for most people and their setup, because it does so much. Not to mention, I didn't even get into the whole safety factor of lever arms and lever-based systems, training to failure. You got that extra safety spotter point. Just fun pieces in my opinion, but definitely know what you guys think, and I will see you on the next video.